Hello, hello. Welcome to Joyful Eating, episode number 134. So today we're going to be talking about why I'll never, with a star next to it, disclaimer, be vegan. And yes, so you get to find out what my star is about. But before we get to that, the best bite I had recently. So I've actually been really lucky. August has been a very good food month, and I've got to eat not once but twice, but three times at actually no, maybe it's not in August. Anyway, definitely at least twice at my favorite Japanese restaurant. It's called Raku. Anyway, they do these amazing slow cooked ribs. They come in this like really rich sauce, lamb ribs they are, and they're just like the meat is melting off the bone. They're so delicious. And I also the other dish that I've had that's been amazing from there is they do this like amazing deep fried tofu. So it's like a tofu tempura. So it's got that crispy skin, that like lovely take, and then they've got like it comes with the avocado sauce and some herbs and stuff. So it's just really fragrant, really got that hot contrast between the hot tofu and the cold sauce. And yeah, that's really good as well. So plan for today is first I'm going to share this story behind this episode. Like, why am I talking about veganism? And then I'll share with you what this asterisk is about. So like why I have a never say never policy. And then I'm going to share with you like the reasons why I will never be vegan again. And also then I'm going to share with you like what to do instead, like how to be an ethical omnivore. So yeah, like yeah. So some like practical tips to dive in there. And first, well, I should mention that spring is sprung here in Australia, and we have these beautiful wattle trees. So my property is like has heaps of wattle, and everywhere I look is yellow. So celebrating that I have some wattle here with us today. So yeah, for those of you listening to the podcast, you can't see, but on YouTube, you'll be able to see my beautiful wattle or on the website. Anyway, so we've covered our plan. So the story behind this episode is just like I see it more and more in the media, like social media, like just to talk about like how plant-based whole food diets, like we should be eating more plants to save the planet, all this narrative. And so I think, yeah, of course, for some people, eating vegetables, like eating plant-based, can be an amazing thing. But for me personally, it's not. And I think it's important to have this balanced view is that it isn't that simple. Like nutrition isn't that we just eat more plants and that meat is bad and that makes us all like amazingly healthy, because there's way more nuance to it. There's also the quantity piece as well, which I'm always banging on about. Like you could be eating like great, eat all the vegetables, like however, like you're eating too much food. Too much food is too much food. So like I think the why I wanted to do an episode about this specifically is because I think it's important that in the that we're getting this narrative as well, is that there is another side to this, and that there is a way, and actually for us to be omnivores, and actually for most of us that is the best choice. And so certainly it is for me. It's up to you, of course, to trust your in wisdom to decide what's worth for you. But I just thought it'd be helpful to hear, like, from someone who is an omnivore, like why I have made that choice, and why I made that intentional choice, and how I actually what that looks like in my life, like how it plays out. So that's said, and then so of course the title I wanted to say was why I'll never be vegan, because like that's way more dramatic. But then there was like the word never always freaks me out a little bit, because I have this policy of never saying never. And in my 51 years on the planet, if there's one thing I've learned is that like oftentimes something that we believe and fervently, like strongly, are all on board with at one point in our lives, that can change. And new information becomes available. We have new experiences, and so sometimes actually like things that we thought we would never do, we start doing, or things that we thought we would never stop, we stop. So just because of that, knowing this, like my life has been, that's like, all right, I think at this point in time, I can't see myself ever being vegan, but you never know. So I'm open to it if that does come up. So yes, that's my never say never policy. So that being said, like why at the moment do I feel like I would never be vegan? So definitely it's not the taste, right? And it's interesting, back in probably like my early days of blogging, I actually had a week, I had a month of being vegetarian, and I blogged about it, like shared like what I was eating. And then I also followed that up a couple of years later with where I had vegan week, where I ate completely vegan for a week. And on both of those occasions, my experience was that after eating vegetarian for a month, like I felt horrible. Like I didn't used to weigh myself back then, but I'm pretty sure I gained weight, and just my energy levels were really low. I was really sluggish, just didn't feel good. And I was so happy to go back to being an omnivore at the end of that month experiment. And then when I did the week-long vegan experiment, again, it was the same thing. Like I wasn't feeling great, but like a week isn't such a big chunk of time. So I didn't see as dramatic a difference, but it's still, I didn't feel good. And I wasn't like, oh, I'm feeling amazing, I want to continue this. I was like, no, get me back to having some animal products in my life. And at the time when I wrote both of those things, one of my reasons was taste, that I was missing the flavor of, you know, bacon. I think I even spoke about specifically. And the thing is that now where I'm at in terms of my ability to season and my confidence as a cook, and also my love of vegetables, like that's evolved over time, and my love of legumes, like definitely the taste isn't a part of it. Like I love vegetables. That tofu dish that I mentioned at the beginning, I enjoy that just as much as the lamb ribs. And I would be happy, like the taste doesn't come. And I'd like, these days I don't eat a lot of bacon anyway because of the nitrates in it. It's like, it's a known carcinogen. So like for me, bacon's something I only have very occasionally. I cook it for the boys. Like I cooked some on the weekend for the boys, but I had tiny taste, and that was it. So it's not a taste thing, because I know that I can make vegetables taste amazing. But what it is really comes down to is that energy levels. It's like how I feel when I had that vegetarian month is like, definitely I don't feel as good. I don't feel like my nutritional needs are being met, and I trust my body to be guiding me on that. Like, so that's the number one reason. And also, like, yeah, another reason is I just don't really want to be vegan. Like I love food. I love, I love variety, and I like don't want to be one of those people that are rocking up, like, can only go to vegan restaurants, or, has all these like restrictions around what I'm eating. Like I just don't want to be that person. I want to be someone who can travel, and it doesn't matter where I am. I'll be able to eat whatever. So that's a huge part of it. And also I think just from the work that I've done in coaching people and on my, like observing on myself is, and just if you think about it from, just the practicality of it, the less restriction you have in your diet, the easier it is to meet your nutritional needs, because you're eating, like you're expanding the variety of food that you are eating. And like most nutritionists will bang on about like eating the rainbow and eating a variety of foods, because if you think of it just from a practical, like the more variety you include, like there's more baskets with eggs in them for you to be having, rather than if you're only eating a certain type of food and you're cutting out all these other things, it just makes it more difficult, more challenging. Is it impossible? No, but it does make it more difficult. And the other reason why I'm really confirmed as being an omnivore is just the more I learn about our protein requirements, particularly as we age, and the importance of getting enough protein to maintain muscle mass and to prevent frailty when we're aging. Like, given that I've got my goal to live to being 122, like that's a huge part of it for me. So I think, yes, can you get your protein requirements as a vegan? Yes, it's possible. Does it make it so much harder? Absolutely. So like not interested from that perspective. And also, like, given that I know about myself is like my diabetes and my insulin sensitivity, is that just when you cut out like animal protein, that by doing that, to get your protein, you're going to have to eat a lot more carbohydrate, because you're eating like legumes and like, yeah, those types of things that come with more carbohydrates. So for me, with my insulin sensitivity, that's not a great choice. And then also, like, another reason why I will never be vegan, never, I say, in 20 years time, someone's pointing to this video say, hey, Jules, you said you'd never be vegan. No, that may happen, probably not. But another reason is just one of the things I believe is that that like we evolved as a species to be omnivores. And so in evolution, like there aren't things generally have a purpose, serve a purpose. So if we evolved with this diet where we aren't carnivore, where we do eat plants and we do eat animal products, then there's some evolutionary advantage to that. So that's another sign that maybe this is the best approach, and definitely for me. And then the other thing is, like, I really love supporting like regenerative agriculture. And part of, like, not that I'm anywhere near an expert at this, but when I speak to people who know about this sort of stuff, like including animals in that food chain, in that system, is an important part of like regenerative agriculture. And it's a very different approach to producing food than if we're looking at monoculture and like having fields and fields of soybeans. So I'd much rather be going to my local farmers market and buying meat from my farmer who's raised it humanely, and where it's actually enhancing their agricultural system, rather than going to the supermarket and buying some Beyond Burger stuff that's got who knows what additives in it. So so there's a whole host of reasons why I am pretty confident that never is going to be the case for me and veganism. So that being said, of course, up to you to make your choices. But if you do want to be an omnivore, I think the ethics piece of being a meat eater is huge. And that, yes, I'm not denying that there are the industrial processed meat is not where we want to be at, and places where animals are not treated humanely or with respect and dignity. I don't want to be a part of that either. So it's not meat at all costs. But I think there is this third path where we look at the ethics of eating meat, and we look at ways to make sure that our meat is produced in a humane way, that it's that the killing process is as humane as possible as well. And yes, other living beings dying so that I continue to live? Yes, but also when you think about it, all food is living things. And so even if you're eating soybeans, those soybeans are were actually picked, and they're still alive, they're still respiring when they're picked. And if you're eating raw food, that broccoli is actually still alive technically when you eat it. So that's just something to consider, of course. But for me, I it's not, it's worth that to support, to be this ethical omnivore. And so how do we go about doing that? So the first thing is that I think is wherever possible, supporting your local farmers, supporting small businesses. And so that's why I pretty much all my meat I buy from the farmers market. So I've got my chicken guy, Brad. He has chicken. He just started doing duck, which is very exciting. So I've had a few ducks from him. And then I've got my other farmer, Sid. He has the most amazing beef, cows, pork, pigs, and sheep. So I get amazing meat from those. The only but then I do buy some meat from either the butcher or the supermarket, and that's sausages for the boys. But again, I'm looking for the most ethically produced sausages that I can get. Another way to be an ethical omnivore is to keep chickens. Seriously, having eggs is so so amazing, and just they're so great for using up scraps and those sorts of things. Of course, it's not available to everyone, but they don't take up a lot of space. So urban chickens are a thing. And then the other thing, I think that a huge part of the piece of being an ethical omnivore is the quantity piece, how much you are eating. And so I think learning this skill of listening to your body, stopping when you're satisfied, not overeating, because that if you think about it, you can, if you're eating the right amount of food for you, then that has a huge impact. If you could eat twice as much food, and then that's like extra food that's being wasted. So this getting the quantity piece, so you're listening to your body, you're eating in the right amount of food for you, you're not overeating, is another huge way to be ethical about your consumption and to, you know, contribute to the environment in a positive way. So I really think, like, if you're overeating and you're, even if it all comes from plants, you know, that's still resources that are going to you that aren't being able to be used by other people. So I think that's actually addressing overeating is way more of an opportunity than looking at eating all plants. Um, and yeah, just seeing overeating, like the one thing I work with my clients is just telling this thought, like, you know, seeing overeating is actually a waste of food. So every time I overeat, I'm wasting food. And not to like shame myself and guilt myself, but just from the, like, that's the practicality of it. And just that gives us an extra incentive to not overeat, because we don't want to be wasteful. We don't want to be taking more than our share of the resources. And then another tip I have for you in terms of being an ethical omnivore is, like, you know, where possible, like buying in bulk, and that just makes it more sustainable. So like having a freezer. So like when I buy my minced meat, my ground meat, I actually buy like 10 kilos at a time from my farmer, because, you know, that makes it more economical, and then I store it in the freezer and just use it. So that can help. Probably it's not so much an ethics thing, but it definitely helps with the financial side of it as well. So yeah, so that's it for today. Just, you know, an episode to get you thinking about, you know, are you happy? Like, if you're happy being an omnivore, amazing. If you're happy being, you know, a completely plant-based person, amazing. However, you know, if you're in that middle area, just something to consider, like, just there is more to the story than just plants are good, meat is bad. And, you know, just I think at the end of the day, doing your own experiments and just seeing how different ways of eating make you feel, and how they fit into your life is really the best approach. So hope you have a fantastic week. And if you're enjoying joyful eating, don't forget to tell your friends. The more people we have, like, bringing more joy and fun and abundance into our relationships with food, like, and getting rid of like that, all that suffering and pain that people have with food, like, the better place the world will be. Okay, have a beautiful week, and I will catch you next week.